Hello, and welcome to another episode of FPC Talks. We are a downtown church in the heart of Huntington, West Virginia, USA. Our regular church service is live streamed every Sunday morning at 10:45 a.m. Or you can join us now in person. We're located at 1015 Fifth Avenue in Huntington, West Virginia. Please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we go live. Also, you can check out our previous worship services as well as other episodes of this program on our channel. And actually, we also are about to release the website, so by the time this airs, there will be a website, a brand new updated website, and I'll put a link in the description for that as well. My guest this afternoon is Mr. Roger Vance. Although Roger and his wife Gail may be considered somewhat newer members of our church, they have both been very active in the service of our missions and activities. Roger has also been serving as a deacon for a few years now. I've gotten to know Roger a little bit through the men's breakfast, in which he was the initial organizer, and we'll discuss about that a little bit later. Roger approached me a while back about wanting to appear on FPC Talks, and I think you will enjoy getting to know him a little better in this interview. I am very much looking forward to it myself as well. Roger, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So let's start right at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went to a Baptist church there from early age. My grandma used to take me to church every Sunday, and had a lot of experience. One time when I was little, I started acting up, and I crawled underneath the desk and wouldn't get out, and I had to go get my grandma, and when I got home, I got a little licking on that one. So, but I grew up in the church and went there all the way up to probably I was about 18, 19 years old. My background was that I was raised by an aunt, great aunt and uncle, grandma and grandpa, and there's three brothers. My mother had died 6 weeks after I was born. And my aunt came from California to help out raising them. My uncle was still in the service in World War II. And he didn't come home until about 1947. So, but my uncle just kind of helped raise us. You know, he'd send money home from the service to help us. You know, we lived in a good neighborhood. We had a big park that we went to and played every day, and we had a theater or show. You know, we would go to a show on Friday nights and Sundays, and the church that I belonged to was a church that they always preached that, you know, if you sin, God's going to punish you. And I guess I sinned a lot because I like to dance. I went to the Catholic Teen Club. That was a no-no in the Baptist then. You didn't dance. You didn't go to the movies on Sunday. I went to the movies on Sunday and danced on Wednesday nights.
Oh, shame.
So, kind of rebelling, you know.
Yeah.
But we grew up three boys, and there's like 2 or 3 years difference between our ages. So I had one brother who passed away a while back, and just me and another brother left. So
Are you the oldest or?
I am the youngest. My dad wasn't in the picture a lot because my dad was married 3 other times and was always taking care of other people's kids. But I got to see my dad, you know, and but everybody in the family worked. They all worked at cigarette factories in Louisville, and so wasn't rich. You know, we got to knock off WT Grant tennis shoes and all that, but we were taken care of. We were provided for. So
I actually I think we talked about this before. I lived in Louisville for a couple of years. I remember that big, if it's the same park you're talking about, right there in the middle of the park near what would be the University of Louisville. It's like, I forget the name of the park.
Well, that was Central Park. Where we lived in the West End of Louisville was called Victory Park.
Oh, I think
And it was like
yeah.
2 blocks long and a block wide. So
Yeah,
you just, everybody went to the park. We had a good time.
yeah.
So
And you talked about, growing up in church, and one of the questions is, what do you maybe feel are some of the major differences between church life then and church life now?
well, I think a lot of churches are getting too political. I don't like that. I think political issues don't belong to the church. It affects different people. Different people have different opinions on political issues, and I think it causes a lot of issues. That's one of the reasons why we left the church that we were, because it was getting too political, and that's why we decided to leave. We've been at that church for 30-some years, ever since we moved here, and we moved here in '87. So been here 33 years now. So.
Wow. Can you describe a little bit about a typical Sunday morning service when you were a young person?
Well, the church had a lot of youth. The church I went to was called 23rd Broadway Baptist Church, and in the early '60s, the church had there was what they called the white flight. A lot of people in the West End of Louisville, which where I lived, were moving because the black people were moving in. And our church decided to have an interracial church. And so we went to that. And that was a good experience for me, because it brought out a lot of issues that, I didn't understand. And I got to meet a lot of black people and had a lot of fun with the black people. And it was a good worshiping with them. And it helped me with a lot of things. The church was basically a kind of a basic, because we had the Southern Baptist Seminary there, and a lot of students would come there, and they would do what they call, they go around the neighborhood and encourage people and see what was going on. So it was really a learning experience, and that's what the church was, a learning experience for people who had never been into an interracial church before. And I met a lot of good friends out of that too, and a lot of young people, and it was a church of learning. The church stayed open, I think, 89 years, and then eventually it was sold. But we had left the church after Gail and I got married, because it just wasn't nothing for the youth. And then but we did go back for the last Sunday and got to see a lot of people, a lot of friends. So.
That's nice. Tell us a little bit about your education/work background.
Well, I started out, my first job was, I got a job at Jewish Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. I worked in the kitchen. I washed dishes. I don't know if you call it washing. You had this great big washing machine. You threw the dishes in on one end, they came out clean on the other, and you stacked them. And then I moved up to pots and pans. I learned how to wash pots and pans. And then I worked in the freezer to put food away and meat and all that, and help order. And then I got a job. My whole family worked at cigarette factories. P. Lord or Philip Morris. And my uncle got me a job at P. Lord's when I was 18 years old. And I worked there about 4.5 years, and made cigarettes, chewing tobacco. So I got laid off and went to start looking for a job, and I went to the railroad. I went to, at the time it was the L&N Railroad there in Louisville, and I got hired. And so I worked for the railroad 30 years. And then in 1987, we moved here from Louisville with the railroad. It was a merger, and I came to Huntington, West Virginia then. So.
What was it like to work on the railroad? What were you What were you doing on the railroad?
I was a pipe fitter. I worked on diesel locomotives and different pipe maintenance work and stuff like that. I went through a 4-year apprenticeship program that taught me how to do my job right. It was a good place to work. You know, I had good benefits and still have good benefits. And I have a pension. I get a good pension. And it was just, I worked different days off. I didn't work a Monday through Friday. Sometimes I'd have Wednesdays and Thursdays off, and then sometimes Mondays and Tuesdays. But I had 3 children at home then, and 4 children rather, and I always wanted to work day work. I wanted to be at home at night with the kids. So, I mean, if I could get weekends off on second shift, I wouldn't take it, because I wanted to be home at night with the kids, you know. I had gone through a divorce. I had 3 children by my first marriage, and then when my wife and I got married in 71, and she inherited me and 3 kids. So anyway, and then we had one 5 years later. So we had 4 children. So.
Great. Let's talk about why you chose to join FPC, and what was that like at the beginning of your. And remind me, you said it's been five years, right? Or since you've been here?
3.
3 years. 3 years. Okay.
Almost 3. Well, you know, when we moved here, we went to a Baptist church in Milton, and we liked it. I always say my wife likes the choir, we joined the church. She liked the choir, we joined the church. And we were there for 30-some years, and we did a lot of things. One of the things about the men's breakfast was I did it there, and we would have people, I'd call people and say, would you like to give a testimonial? And it was a way of getting to know the men in the church. And so we did that for a while, and people would give a testimonial, and we'd have a breakfast. And then eventually, you know, nobody wanted to take it over, so it died. But we did some other things. I was always in the kitchen. But then the church started getting into some political issues, and did not agree with what we felt. And at first we thought, okay, we're going to just ignore it, you know. And but then it just got to where we couldn't ignore it, and some issues, and we just felt like that these are personal issues that people have to make, and not necessarily church. And so I was ready to leave, and my wife thought it would get better, and finally she said, you know, I think it's best that we leave. And so we started visiting some other churches. And we had visited this church once before, because the power in the Baptist church went out one Sunday, and Ed Hartless lives right across the street from us. And so we thought, well, let's go to Ed's church. And, you know, we came in, and I don't remember too much about it. It was, you know, it was pretty crowded, and we enjoyed the service. And then when we started looking for another church, we tried some other churches and different denominations. And then finally we said, well, let's try Ed's church. So we came here, and I was impressed. I was really impressed, first of all, with John Anderson and Bob and Alan. You know, people came up and introduced themselves, said they were glad we were here. I was really impressed with the Sunday when we had communion, because I saw a lot of women involved in that. And I always felt that women belong in a church, not necessarily just cooking and teaching Sunday school, but that was impressed me that women were involved in this church and doing things. And I even like women preaching. I think it's good, like Mother's Day, for women to get up and talk about their experience in growing up. Fathers, same way with men. On Father's Day, get up and talk about their experience and their father and what they taught them. And I think this is something I think the church might want to look into. I think it helps the church grow when you get, you know. I'm always into understanding people and sit down and talking to people and just learning about people. And I think one of the reasons that with the men's breakfast, that's what we're trying to do, is because men don't like to talk about themselves, you know. And it's kind of hard, you know, but anyway, I'm getting to know a lot of the guys here at the church. Still don't know everybody, you know, but I just asked. I don't know your name. I'm going to ask you. So, anyway.
You were elected as deacon for the second time, or at least the second term recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about what being a deacon means to you? And first, I should maybe, because this was something I didn't think about to write down. But were you a deacon in the past, or in other church leadership roles?
I was a deacon in the Baptist church, the church that I grew up in. It was kind of an honor, that they would ask me at, being divorced. And then when I came here, I guess because I got involved, someone asked me about it, and I said, yeah, I'd do it, and I kind of like doing that. I mean, it's a way of, contacting people, getting to know, and I know the deacons are going to have a meeting, I think, in a couple of weeks to see what else we're going to be doing, and I look forward to doing that.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. Are there people in your past that have made a lasting impression on you?
Yeah, I have a lot of people. I think my uncle, who, he wasn't a spiritual man. He never went to church. He was a quiet person. Didn't say a whole lot. But he would support me in anything that I did, and the fact that being in the war, sending money home to support 3 kids that are not his, that meant a lot. And one of the things I learned was that, when I learn things, sometimes the good Lord's got to slap me upside the head. Say, Rod, you missed this opportunity. And that was with my uncle. I never told him I loved him. Now, why, I don't know. I guess because, he's not my dad, or but this man sacrificed a lot by raising us and supporting us. And when he died, I was at the casket, and I was looking at it, and that's when the good Lord slapped me upside the head and said, Raj, you never told that man you loved him. And so I've learned a lesson that when I feel strong about people, tell them you love them. It would have been nice to see his reaction if I told him that. But, my uncle, he was in the war. He never talked about the war or anything like that. So he was just kind of to himself,
This was your mother's brother, I guess, right?
Yeah, he was, he was my great aunt's husband.
Okay.
So another person was Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein lived next door to me, and Ronnie was my best friend. And we're going to talk about that to men's purpose.
Right, I remember.
I won't give too much about that, but anyway. But Mr. Klein was a man who had 5 children. He worked at a laundry company. He drove a truck, and he played softball. And he used to go over and pitch with the kids and teach them how to bat. And they kind of adopted me, because Ronnie and I lived next door, and we do everything together. I would go on their family picnics with them. And he was kind of a father to me. Taught me how to swing a bat, catch a ball, play horseshoes. And he was just a father, figured out everything. And he used to have what they call nickel balls. And he'd go to the park and hit balls, and if you caught them, you got a nickel. And when he showed up in that laundry truck, everybody quit playing basketball to go over and try to get a nickel. And then the last one was a quarter, so that was a quarter ball. So anyway, but he had a good influence on me. And then Jesus Christ had a good bearing on me, because when I went through my divorce, it was really rough. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I learned you have to let go and let things happen. And that was a big struggle for me, being married for 9 years and had 3 children. Because I grew up that you don't get divorced, That was a no-no. But it was just one of them things that happened. And but I blamed God at one time. It was his fault. Like, yeah, we always blame everybody else, but I had to realize, it was my fault. It was our fault. And I learned by that. And so God's helped me overcome that. And he said, I've had a lot of miracles in my life when I was meeting my wife, and so I've learned from that. And I will just say now, we've been married 50 years now, and so, but God taught me, let go and let God handle these things, and I did. So, and
that's a nice message. Can you describe what your vision for the future was like 50 years ago?
well, I don't know if I can remember 50 years ago.
I asked this question too, and it's like, what do you mean 50? But it's
Well,
when you say when you were maybe in your teenage years,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, my teenage years, I remember we had these organizations called RAs, and I remember going, and I got embarrassed one time because they asked me to pray, and I didn't know how to do that, and so I didn't go back. And I remember when I was 12 years old, they had a youth revival, and I decided to be baptized. It was like, okay, you're supposed to do this now. And I really didn't understand what it was all about. So at age 12, I got baptized. But I didn't really find God until after I got divorced and got, started getting it all together. And I just had a spiritual awakening, and God's helped me with this journey. And it's just, just the way it is. I always don't necessarily get on my knees. If I got a problem, I talk about it. I say, God, I got this issue. I need some help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And that's what I do a lot. But the church, it was you just preached the Bible, and that was it. Now the churches today are, like I said, getting more political and things like this, and mega churches and all that. I don't like mega churches. I don't like the churches on TV. If I die, they ain't gonna come see me. So anyway, I want something, So.
Yeah. What about? Can you describe your vision? What kind of hope for the future do you have right now in the present time?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't look for the future. I take things day by day, one day at a time, and deal with that. Someone told me that if you don't deal with the day-to-day issues, then how do you deal with the hurricane when it hits? And so I've learned just to deal with day-to-day issues. And then if the hurricane does, I've got all that off the plate, and then I can deal with the hurricane, or accept it, one or the other. I can't, I learned to accept the things I cannot change. So, and, one of the things that in 1999, I had an aneurysm. I never had any major surgery in my life other than, a few little minor things, And I remember being scared because I never been opened up with some major surgery. And I remember just praying to God, said, God, I've had a good life, and if it's meant for me to come to you, that's fine. And when I went in that operating room, I just felt so much serenity in my life. And I guess the good Lord decided to keep me around, because I'm here. But then a year later, now both this was on my birthday, because then I had a 4-way bypass. And I did the same thing. I had so much serenity in my life when I went into that hospital, and I don't know what God's got for me to explore it, but I just take it one day at a time. And but that makes me, that's the God as I understand. Whenever I have something, I need to say, hey God, I got a little issue here. I need some help. And so it was. And like I said, I felt so surrendering in my life and so confident when I went in. So.
Amen. We don't say amen a lot in the service, but we say, I can say amen to that. Let's briefly give a plug for Logos. That's actually by the time this goes on the air, we'll have already started the program back all summer. I've been saying once it returns in person, and we are hopefully going to be keeping that going by the time this goes on the air. But if you want to check in the description for our website, we'll have some more details about it. But Logos meets throughout the school year weekly on Wednesdays from 4:30 to 7:45, and you can contact the church office for some more details. But you and Gail both, your wife Gail, I might have mentioned in the introduction, you both volunteer for the Logos program. What has Logos meant to you in working with the young people of this church?
Well, I worked with young kids for about 15 years, and I always enjoyed working with teenagers. I can't work with little kids. I like teenagers. I like to sit down in a circle and light a candle and just go around and rap and listen to kids' problems and give them hugs and support them. And I always like doing this. And kids enjoy it. Kids like to talk about things. They like to get things out. Funny thing about kids is they don't lie. They just talk about it. Sometimes as the parents we can't talk about things, but kids will just tell you what it is, and I like that, and I enjoyed that for a long time, and I just enjoy it. I can't stay up all night with them. We used to have what they call lock-ins. I might be able to do one, but it's kind of hard, but I just like being around kids. I like being around younger people in Sunday school, and I like to talk about, how issues and what God can help you with your issues today. And I just like being around kids. I think what we do here is great. And I know the COVID's knocked everything for a year off, and I hope that we can get by and start this thing over again. And I'm going to be working with the teenagers this year. I said in a couple of times, somebody said they like me, so I don't know. We'll see. I do want to mention one little thing here that in 2003, my son died. He was 32 years old. And he was a hard-headed kid. He's like me, I guess. But I loved him very much. And when he died, he had a bad heart. And he was living in Missouri. He called us and told us, he didn't have much longer. But when we went out, and the doctor said, well, we don't know, but we can't operate on you. And he just turned everything over, and and I did too. And he got 18 months after he was diagnosed, and he died very peacefully. And we had a service here, and then we had a service in Louisville too. And it was good to all his friends and people that I knew and we knew from other churches that we'd gone to. They all came, and today, every once in a while I'll see somebody walking down, or somebody will remind me of Roger. And but it's hard when you lose a son. And actually, I've lost two children. I lost our first child when I was married the first time. And but God gets you through it. You just walk through it. You just take it one day at a time. And just think about all the good times you had with him in life. And I remember he wrote me a letter one time, and I still got it. He said, Dad, he said, I knew you were right about some things, but I had to do it my way to realize that you were right. And I think sometimes kids have to do it their own way to prove that, you were right. So, and that's the way they have to learn. And but I still miss my son. And he kind of hippie looking. He had long hair and wore glasses. Mm-hmm. But he'd give you a nickel if you needed. He'd give you $1 if you needed a nickel. But he was always helping people out. So he was that kind of person. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about the men's breakfast, because we were getting ready to talk about that. We meet on the first Saturday of every month at 8 a.m. sharp. I put, but more like 8 o'clock when you can get there for about an hour. Throughout the summer, we were meeting in Ritter Park downtown, but now we're going to probably be meeting at the church at least once this goes out to the stream. And you organize the men's breakfast like you were talking about when you had it in your previous church, but tell us some more about that.
Well, to me, the men's breakfast is for men to get to know men. And what I really like to see is some men that would just take about 15, 20 minutes and talk to them about how they found God in their life and what turned them towards God, because that's the way I learn. I learn when people talk about things and see people grow in their lives. That enriches me. And I'm hoping that we could do that with some of the men in the church. And I'm going to be contacting some of them, see if they want to do that. But I just think, men need to know men. And it would be nice, and I've been on a men's retreat. We went to a Methodist church one time for a few years, and they had a men's retreat. I really enjoyed that. And I got to really meet some men and closer men. And then one time when I was a deacon in the first church, the Baptist church, we had a retreat. And that was very powerful when you sit around and men get to really share about growing up and some of the struggles. And I remember one time a man talked about he never had a white shirt in his life because he was so poor. And now he was a successful businessman, and he prided himself wearing a white shirt. So, and things like that, personal things. It's kind of funny is that when we're dating our wives, we tell them everything. But then when we get married, like, okay, they know everything. Well, they don't, because you change. So you need to keep having communication every day. So, and I hope that's what we can do with the men, that we really get to know the men in the church and really get to love each other more deeply. So.
Well, thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the end of this interview, but if you have enjoyed our program, please like, share, and also comment down below to tell us what you thought about it. Is there anything I left out? Leave us a comment to keep the conversation going. Also, if you are interested in joining a church, and I would say if you lived in Huntington, but actually now with the online internet, you can be anywhere in the whole world because we live stream every worship service on Sunday mornings. Currently now it's at 10:45, which was actually the traditional time pre-COVID. COVID time we were at 10 o'clock, but we're at 10:45 on this here YouTube channel. So tune in at that time or come back later and watch our service whenever is convenient for you. Our guest today has been Roger Vance. I've really enjoyed hearing his story, and this was we weren't quite expecting everything because I wanted to just let him talk, and that was really nice that he honored us with sharing things in his life. We as a church sincerely appreciate you being on the program and sharing your story with us. May the Lord bless you and your family and your loved ones. Roger, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.